The chill of early autumn crept in with a determination that spoke of winter's inevitable arrival. The air was crisp, each gust carrying whispers of stories untold and secrets buried deep beneath fallen leaves. In the heart of a modest town, where weathered brick buildings and time-worn sidewalks held memories of bygone eras, stood a small refuge known as Safe Paws Shelter. Its faded sign still declared its purpose with a gentle defiance against the march of time. Calvin paused at the threshold, his broad frame cloaked in an old military jacket that had seen better days. His hands, tucked deep in the pockets, trembled ever so slightly, not from the cold but from a lifetime of hidden sorrows and unshed tears. Every measured step he took toward the door was laden with the weight of memories he rarely shared. The high shelter, bathed in the glow of a low winter sun, exuded both hope and a hint of melancholy, a sanctuary where those who had been forgotten found solace among kindred spirits. Inside, the atmosphere was a medley of sterile bleach and the musky, comforting odor of damp fur. The sound of distant barking echoed softly down the narrow corridors, a constant reminder of lives waiting to be mended. Calvin's eyes, a steely gray reminiscent of long-forgotten battles, swept over the room, not with longing, but with a quiet, resigned observation. He wasn't here to adopt a pet in the usual sense. He was here almost reluctantly, at the urging of his counselor, a gentle soul who believed that connections, no matter how fragile, could spark the healing of a broken heart. A young staff member approached with a tentative smile. "Good afternoon, sir. May I help you?" she asked in a voice as soft as a lullaby. Calvin merely nodded, his eyes lingering on the rows of kennels. The canines within greeted him in various states of excitement, some wagging their tails in hopeful abandon, others curling into quiet introspection. One beagle let out a sharp bark, while a golden retriever pressed its paw against the bars, as if pleading silently for attention. Yet Calvin remained detached, his gaze unfocused, as though traversing a dreamscape where every familiar shape was tinged with sorrow. He walked slowly along the aisle until he reached a kennel tucked away in the far corner, shrouded in gentle shadow. There, half hidden and almost blending into the dim surroundings, lay a large, rugged German shepherd. His coat, once a proud display of brindle splendor, now appeared dull and patched, marred by scars of old battles. One hind leg, though still functional, moved with a hesitance born of past injuries. The dog's ears lay low and his eyes, wise and weary, were fixed upon the concrete floor, as if lost in contemplation. As Calvin drew near, the dog stirred with a languid grace, lifting his head slowly. In that subtle motion their eyes met, Calvin's stormy gray with the gentle, soulful gaze of the creature. A soft, almost imperceptible bark emerged from the dog, a sound that spoke of recognition rather than mere greeting. Calvin's breath caught, and in that suspended moment, the world outside the shelter seemed to fade into insignificance. "Is that him?" the staff member inquired softly, noticing the unspoken dialogue between man and animal. "He's Blaze," Calvin replied, his voice quiet but firm, as though summoning memories of a past life etched with honor and loss. The woman's eyes softened. "Blaze is a retired canine, wounded during a search and rescue operation. He's been here for a while, his spirit too proud to ask for help, too gentle to be forgotten." Without hesitation, Calvin asked, "May I take him home?" A brief pause followed before she responded, "Of course, sir, I'll fetch his leash." As Blaze was led out of his kennel, his movements were tentative yet dignified. Every step was a testament to resilience, a living reminder that even in brokenness, there was beauty. Calvin's hand extended to gently clasp the cool metal of the leash. The connection was immediate. Blaze's eyes held no fear, only a quiet recognition of a soul who had weathered storms of his own. Outside, the fading light cast long shadows along the pavement as Calvin and Blaze made their way to the waiting truck. The drive was silent save for the soft hum of the engine and the rustling of leaves outside, a silent symphony composed by nature and time. Calvin's thoughts wandered to his days in service, the cacophony of war, and the long, unspoken nights that followed. In Blaze's steady gaze, he saw a reflection of his own battles, the unyielding will to persevere even when life seemed intent on breaking him. At Calvin's modest cabin on the edge of a vast, whispering forest, a quiet transformation began. The home was small and unassuming, a place where memories of loss mingled with the hope of new beginnings. Blaze, though scarred by his past, adjusted with a gentle determination. In the early days, their interactions were wordless exchanges of understanding. Mornings found them on long walks along winding forest trails, where the dew-kissed leaves sparkled like tiny fragments of lost dreams. Calvin's slow, deliberate steps mirrored the careful pace of Blaze, whose every movement seemed measured by a sense of duty and remembrance. Days turned into weeks as the bond between man and dog deepened. At first, Blaze's old habits surfaced, obedient commands from a life of training, a silent echo of past glories. Calvin, with a subtle smile and a knowing nod, would occasionally issue a wordless command, and Blaze would comply, his actions smooth and unwavering. In those moments, Calvin felt a brief resurgence of the man he once was, a soldier with purpose, a guardian of those who could not defend themselves. Evenings were reserved for quiet reflection. Seated by a crackling fireplace, Calvin prepared simple meals while Blaze lay nearby, his eyes following every movement with a vigilance that belied his gentle nature. It was during these moments that Calvin would share fragments of his past, whispered confessions of a time filled with both honor and sorrow. In the quiet companionship that only two broken souls could share, he found solace and perhaps a path to healing. One crisp evening, as twilight draped the world in hues of deep blue and silver, a sharp cry shattered the silence. Calvin, roused abruptly from a fitful sleep, found himself in a nightmare that replayed his deepest fears, a relentless barrage of memories from a war that never truly ended. His heart pounded in his chest as a searing pain radiated from his leg. In the darkness of the room, with only the dim glow of a street lamp filtering through the window, Calvin struggled to comprehend the searing agony that threatened to pull him under. Blaze, ever perceptive, stirred from his quiet vigil. With a low, urgent bark, he moved to Calvin's side, pressing his head against the veteran's trembling hand. "Hold on, Blaze," Calvin whispered, though his voice betrayed the pain he fought to suppress. In a moment of desperate clarity, Calvin fumbled for his phone, only to find it lifeless, a casualty of the remote, untamed wild where cell signals rarely dared to venture. The minutes stretched into an eternity as Calvin's pleas for help mingled with the sound of his ragged breathing. "Blaze, go find help," he managed to choke out, his voice strained yet resolute. The loyal companion's eyes burned with a fierce determination. With a single decisive command in the silence of the night, Blaze turned and bolted into the dense forest, his every step imbued with urgency. Navigating the labyrinthine woods, Blaze pushed his aging body to its limits. The familiar trails, once his sanctuary, now morphed into a treacherous maze of gnarled roots and unseen perils. Yet, driven by a devotion that transcended pain, Blaze surged onward, his pace unyielding, despite the weight of his past injuries. Every labored breath was a testament to his resolve, a promise to a man who had long forgotten what it meant to be cared for. After what felt like an endless journey, Blaze emerged into a clearing near a modest cluster of houses. His barks, sharp and insistent, shattered the quiet of the night. A figure appeared at a window, the light within flickering in the wake of the commotion. "There's someone out here," the startled neighbor exclaimed, quickly throwing on a jacket and hurrying outside. In a flurry of concerned shouts and rapid footsteps, Blaze led the way back toward Calvin's isolated cabin. Within the hour, the sound of sirens replaced the earlier symphony of nature. EMTs arrived, their faces etched with concern as they gently extricated Calvin from his precarious perch on the floor. Through the haze of pain and disorientation, Calvin's eyes sought out Blaze, who remained at the edge of the scene, steadfast, his tail a slow metronome of reassurance. As Calvin was secured onto a stretcher and whisked away into the night, his hand reached out, resting briefly upon Blaze's matted fur. "You did it," he murmured, voice trembling with a mix of gratitude and disbelief. In the days that followed, as Calvin lay recuperating in a sterile hospital room, the tale of Blaze's nocturnal heroics spread like wildfire through the tight-knit community. Neighbors spoke in hushed tones about the loyal guardian who had defied the odds, a silent warrior who bridged the gap between despair and hope. Local newspapers ran headlines that celebrated the bond between a man and his dog, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the unwavering loyalty of a true friend. Calvin's recovery was slow and marked by moments of introspection. The hospital room, though a temporary haven, was a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the enduring scars of battles fought both abroad and within. In the quiet hours of the night, when the world outside lay draped in shadows, Calvin would find himself replaying the events that had led him to this point. With every recollection, he found that Blaze's presence had rekindled a long-dormant part of him, a spark of purpose that had been all but extinguished. Once discharged, Calvin returned to his humble cabin on the outskirts of town. The familiar surroundings now bore a new significance, a canvas upon which the stories of old could mingle with the promise of tomorrow. Blaze, now a local legend in his own right, remained by his side, a living emblem of courage and redemption. Their days resumed a quiet rhythm. Early morning walks along dew-dappled trails, afternoons spent in silent companionship by a warm, crackling fire, and evenings filled with the soft murmur of shared memories. As time moved inexorably forward, the seasons shifted. Autumn faded into winter, and the stark beauty of snow-covered landscapes brought both solitude and reflection. Neighbors, once strangers, now greeted Calvin with nods of respect and whispered words of admiration. Children, inspired by the story of Blaze's valor, created drawings and penned heartfelt notes, each piece a small tribute to the dog who had transcended his own limitations to become a guardian. In the heart of winter, on a night when the silence was profound and the stars shone with an almost otherworldly clarity, Calvin sat by his fireplace, lost in contemplation. The warmth of the flames danced across his weathered face, illuminating the lines etched deep by time and experience. Blaze lay at his feet, ever watchful, his eyes reflecting the quiet dignity of a soul who had known both pain and triumph. "You saved more than just my life, Blaze," Calvin whispered into the flickering light. "You gave me a reason to fight again, to remember that even in the depths of despair, love can guide us home." The passing months brought with them moments of joy interspersed with bittersweet recollections. Calvin began to share his journey with those who would listen, his tales of camaraderie and loss resonating deeply with fellow veterans and townsfolk alike. In community centers and local gatherings, the narrative of a battle-scarred veteran and his unwavering companion became a beacon of hope, a reminder that even the most broken among us could find redemption in the embrace of loyalty and trust. Yet as the hands of time continued their relentless march, even the strongest bonds faced the inevitability of change. One clear winter morning, as pale sunlight filtered through frost-covered windows, Calvin awoke to an eerie silence. Blaze, his steadfast friend, lay curled upon his favorite cushion, his rhythmic breathing a soft cadence that belied the stillness of the room. The realization dawned slowly, heavy as lead. The loyal guardian who had journeyed through life's darkest corridors had grown quiet, his spirit having taken its final, peaceful rest. In the days that followed, grief settled over the cabin like a dense fog. Calvin, who had long borne the weight of solitude, now grappled with an emptiness that threatened to swallow him whole. Friends and neighbors gathered to offer their condolences, their shared sorrow a testament to the profound impact of Blaze's life. At a small, heartfelt ceremony beneath a sprawling oak, once a silent witness to laughter and quiet conversations, Calvin laid his companion to rest. Draped in a simple blanket and adorned with a handcrafted collar and engraved tag, Blaze's resting place was marked by a modest wooden cross bearing the inscription, "Blaze, Guardian of Hearts, forever in our memory." In the quiet aftermath, as winter began to thaw into the gentle promise of spring, Calvin wandered through the now familiar woods. Each step carried him through memories of shared adventures and silent understandings. The forest, resilient and ever-changing, whispered its own tale of renewal, of life emerging triumphantly even after the harshest of seasons. And though the ache of loss remained, Calvin discovered that the echoes of Blaze's loyalty continued to guide him. In every rustle of leaves, in every beam of sunlight breaking through the canopy, he found solace in the enduring truth that love, once given freely, never truly departs. One crisp morning, as buds began to bloom in defiance of the lingering chill, a soft knock at the door stirred Calvin from his reverie. Standing there was a young shelter volunteer, her eyes filled with both uncertainty and hope. Clutched in her arms was a small puppy with floppy ears and inquisitive eyes, a new life waiting for its chance to heal and to love. "We thought you might like a new friend," she said gently, extending the tiny creature toward him. Calvin hesitated for a moment, the weight of the past mingling with the promise of the future. Slowly, a fragile smile spread across his weathered face. "I remember," he murmured softly, reaching out to cradle the puppy. In that quiet exchange, the cycle of care and redemption found its continuation. The small bundle of fur, playful yet uncertain, represented both an ending and a new beginning. The memories of Blaze, though bittersweet, had paved the way for this unexpected chapter, a chance to find solace in the ever-evolving tapestry of life. Over the ensuing weeks, Calvin and the new puppy, whom he named Ember, formed their own unique bond. Femba's boundless energy and innocent curiosity gradually brought color back into Calvin's once muted world. Morning walks resumed along the winding forest paths, and the quiet evenings by the fire were now shared with gentle, playful banter that stirred echoes of laughter long dormant. In every joyful yip and every cautious step, Ember reminded Calvin that life, despite its scars, always held room for hope and second chances. The story of Calvin, Blaze, and now Ember wove its way through the fabric of the small town, inspiring those who had once felt adrift in solitude. Neighbors continued to share stories of quiet heroism and unexpected love, each anecdote a tribute to the enduring power of loyalty. Community events blossomed into celebrations of life's fragile beauty, gatherings where stories were told, memories cherished, and new bonds forged in the unspoken promise that every end heralded the dawn of something new. As spring deepened into a vibrant mosaic of green and gold, the town began to see a subtle transformation. The local newspaper, which had once chronicled tales of hardship and resilience, now printed headlines that celebrated the triumph of the human spirit over adversity. Photographs captured Calvin standing tall beside Ember, his gaze imbued with the quiet confidence of one who had rediscovered his purpose. And in every corner of the town, from the bustling market square to the quiet benches of the park, the legacy of Blaze's quiet heroism continued to serve as a gentle reminder that even in the face of loss, the bonds of love and loyalty could heal the deepest of wounds. In time, Calvin embraced the bittersweet truth that every life leaves an indelible mark on the hearts of those it touches. The memories of Blaze, preserved in whispered tales and silent moments of reflection, became a guiding light in the dark corners of his mind. And as he nurtured Ember with the tender care of a man who had learned to cherish each fragile moment, he also found the strength to forgive himself for the past, to accept that even those who had been broken could find a way to mend. Every sunset brought with it a quiet promise, the promise that as night fell, the stars would shine a little brighter, illuminating the path ahead. Calvin would often stand outside his cabin, the cool evening air mingling with the gentle laughter of neighbors and the distant hum of life, and he would feel a deep, abiding gratitude for the unexpected turns that had led him here. It was in the quiet solitude of the twilight, when memories danced like shadows on the ground, that he truly understood the profound truth of his journey. That love, in its many forms, was the ultimate salvation. The seasons turned, as they always do, and, with each passing year, the legacy of Blaze and the promise embodied by Ember continued to flourish. Calvin, now a quiet pillar in his community, became a living testament to the power of resilience and renewal. In his gentle smile and steadfast determination, the people of the town saw the reflection of all those who had once felt lost, and the hope that even in the darkest moments, light could find a way in. And so, as the gentle murmur of life carried on beneath the ever-changing sky, the story of a battle-worn veteran and his loyal canine companion transcended time. It was a tale of courage and compassion, of wounds that healed with time, and of the quiet strength that lay in the bonds we forge along the way. In the soft glow of the morning sun and the silent whispers of the night, their journey remained, a beacon, a reminder that while the past may leave its scars, it also leaves us with the power to embrace the future with an open heart. Calvin often recalled a simple truth shared by an old friend long ago. Sometimes the greatest victories are not fought on distant battlefields, but in the quiet moments of understanding that bind us together. In every tender glance shared with Ember, in every rustle of leaves that echoed the memories of Blaze, he found solace, a living mosaic of love, loss, and the relentless beauty of starting anew. As the years melded into a tapestry of vibrant memories and soft farewells, the townspeople began to see that every ending was simply the seed of a new beginning. A gentle breeze might carry away the sorrow of yesterday, yet it also whispered promises of tomorrow's hope. And in the heart of it all, Calvin's cabin, once a solitary refuge of a man haunted by the past, had become a sanctuary where the stories of broken souls were transformed into legacies of love and healing. Now, when the wind rustled through the ancient trees, or the first buds of spring unfurled in delicate splendor, the memory of Blaze lingered like a cherished refrain, a timeless melody that echoed the truth that no one ever truly walks alone. And in that enduring, unspoken bond, Calvin discovered that even when darkness loomed large, there was always the promise of light on the horizon, a promise that each new day held the power to heal, to inspire, and to remind us that the purest forms of loyalty and love were the ones that carried us through the storms of life. In the end, as twilight softened into the gentle embrace of night and the stars took their rightful places in the vast expanse above, Calvin sat by his window, a warm cup of tea cradled in his weathered hands, and allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. He thought of Blaze, of Ember, and of all the souls whose lives had been forever altered by the simple act of caring, a reminder that in every act of kindness, in every shared glance of understanding, there lay the power to transform even the deepest wounds into a legacy of hope. And so, with the promise of a new dawn glimmering on the horizon, the story of Calvin and his cherished companions continued, a story woven from the threads of loss and redemption, of quiet heroism and the timeless, unyielding truth that love endures long after the echoes of pain have faded. In that enduring bond, in the gentle unity of hearts that refuse to let go, the spirit of those who had once been broken found its truest expression, a bond beyond shadows, a light that could never be dimmed. As the final leaves of autumn surrendered to winter's chill and the world settled into a peaceful, reflective silence, the legacy of that unwavering bond grew ever stronger. It was a tale told in hushed tones beneath the moonlit sky, a story etched into the very soul of the town, a constant reminder that even the most shattered lives could be pieced together again through the quiet strength of compassion, loyalty, and the unbreakable promise of a friend who never truly leaves our side. In every echo of laughter on a sunlit afternoon, in every whispered memory carried by the wind, the spirit of Blaze, the hope embodied by Ember, and the enduring courage of Calvin lived on, a timeless testament to the fact that sometimes the smallest acts of love can light the way through even the darkest of times, guiding us toward a future filled with promise, healing, and the eternal gift of redemption.